And thus, every man, if he is just an ordinary man, that is, one who has never consciously worked on himself, has two worlds. And if he has worked on himself and has become a, so to say, candidate for another life, he has even three worlds. In spite of the fact that everyone, without exception, will certainly think that I have gone completely mad when they read the above statement, I shall nevertheless go on to develop the logical consequences of this ultra-extravagant notion. If you really want to know the truth, I will tell you how matters stand, and why I pronounced such an absurdity. First of all, it must be said that in the outpourings of various occultists and other will-less parasites, when they discuss spiritual questions, not everything is entirely wrong. What they call the soul does really exist, but not everybody necessarily has one. A soul is not born with man, and can neither unfold nor take form in him, so long as his body is not fully developed. It is a luxury that can only appear and attain completion in the period of responsible age, that is to say, in a man's maturity. The soul, like the physical body, is also matter, only it consists of a finer matter. The matter from which the soul is formed and from which it later nourishes and perfects itself is, in general, elaborated during the processes that take place between the two essential forces upon which the entire universe is founded. The matter in which the soul is coated can be produced exclusively by the action of these two forces, which are called good and evil by ancient science, or affirmation and negation, while contemporary science calls them attraction and repulsion. In the common presence of a man, these two forces have their source in two of the totalities of general psychic functioning, which have already been mentioned. One of them coincides with that function whose factors proceed from the results of impressions received from outside, and the other appears as a function whose factors issue chiefly from the results of the specific functioning of the organs as determined by heredity. In the common presence of a man, as in everything in the universe, sometimes one and sometimes the other of these totalities of functioning can serve as the source of one of the forces required for the process of which we are speaking. For this process, it is not important to know which of the two forces is affirmative and which is negative. What matters is that when one affirms, the other denies. The full realization and precise determination in man of that totality of functioning whose factors are constituted from impressions coming from outside is called the outer world of man, and the full realization of the other totality whose factors have arisen from automatically flowing experiences and from reflexes of the organism, notably of those organs whose specific character is transmitted by heredity, is called the inner world of man. In relation to these two worlds, man appears in reality to be merely a slave, because his various perceptions and manifestations cannot be other than conformable to the quality and nature of the factors making up these totalities. He is obliged, in relation to his outer world as well as his inner world, to manifest himself in accordance with the orders received from any given factor of one or the other totality. He cannot have his own initiative. He is not free to want or not to want. He is obliged to carry out passively this or that result, proceeding from other outer or inner results. Such a man, that is to say, a man who is related to only two worlds, can never do anything. On the contrary, everything is done through him. In everything, he is but the blind instrument of the caprices of his outer and inner worlds. The highest esoteric science calls such a man in quotation marks. In other words, he is named a man, and at the same time, he is not a man. He is not a man such as he should be, because his perceptions and his manifestations do not flow according to his initiative, but take place either under the influence of accidental causes or in accordance with functioning that conforms to the laws of the two worlds. In the case of a man in quotation marks, the I is missing, and what takes its place and fills its role is the factor of initiative proceeding from that one of the two above-mentioned totalities in which the center of gravity of his general state is located. The I in a real man represents that totality of the functioning of his general psyche whose factors have their origin in the results of contemplation, or simply in the contact between the first two totalities, that is, between the factors of his inner world and his outer world. The totality of the manifestations of this third function of the general psyche of man also represents a world in itself. But in this case, it is the third world of man. And thus, this world of man is, strictly speaking, as the ancient sciences understood, the real inner world of man, as opposed to the real outer world. I shall call this third definite totality of functioning in the general psyche of man by the same name it was given in the distant past, that is, the world of man. According to this terminology, the general psyche of man in its definitive form is considered to be the result of conformity to these three independent worlds. The first is the outer world, in other words, everything existing outside him, both what he can see and feel, as well as what is invisible and intangible for him. The second is the inner world, in other words, all the automatic processes of his nature and the mechanical repercussions of these processes. The third world is his own world, depending neither upon his outer world nor upon his inner world. That is to say, it is independent of the caprices and of the processes that flow in him, as well as of the imperfections in these processes that bring them about. A man who does not possess his own world can never do anything from his own initiative. All his actions are done in him. Only he can have his own initiative for perceptions and manifestations in whose common presence there has been formed, in an independent and intentional manner, the totality of factors necessary for the functioning of this third world. Thus, it is quite obvious that the whole secret of human existence lies in the difference in the formation of the factors that are necessary for these three relatively independent functions of the general psyche of man. And this difference consists solely in that the factors of the first two totalities are formed by themselves in conformity to laws as a result of chance causes, not depending on them, while the factors of the third totality are formed exclusively by an intentional blending of the functions of the first two. And it is indeed in this sense that one must understand the saying, common to all the old religious teachings, that man receives all his possibilities from on high.